A little bit after that, Celtic took to the field in Madrid, and Celtic were duly battered by Atletico Madrid, 6-0. It's a dreadful scoreline, isn't it? But, of course, you have to take into account that early on they lost a man. They went down to 10 men. And that was a debatable decision in itself. But what this brings to mind is what Brendan Rogers said back in July when he got the job at Celtic for the second time. I mean, he was asked about, all right, Brendan, what about Celtic's Champions League ambitions under you again?
We have to be realistic. You know, it's really exciting, and it's obviously, you know, it's a competition that is the highest level that you can play in club football. I think what's important for us is to be really competitive against the top level teams, but it's also European football as a whole. Is to try and get as far as we possibly can in whichever competition we're in. Of course, when we arrive into the Champions League, we want, and our ambition is to qualify out to that group stage. That is a huge challenge. However, it's a challenge that we'll embrace. If not, then we want to try and ensure that we've got European football after Christmas and go as far as we possibly can.
Well, they haven't done that. Not even close. I mean, Danny, they did go down. Did you see the decision?
I didn't.
The red card decision, extremely debatable. I don't know
meant
if you
to
saw
look
it,
at it this
Simon.
morning.
I did.
Yeah.
What did you think? Not that it really matters now, but
It's gone. But
it's gone. Yeah.
I didn't think it was a great decision, but I also think that Celtic's response to it, to go and get beat 6-0, is not a great reaction to it.
Yeah. I mean, has it come to the point, Simon, when you can't judge Scottish club managers on Europe anymore?
No, it's not good enough. That's not a good enough argument. And Brendan doesn't get a way of pricing it into the thinking to manage expectations at the beginning of the season. Because, with due respect, the turnover of Feyenoord is no bigger than the turnover of Celtic. So with the financial argument being put into play, the two clubs have an equivalency. And Feyenoord may well get into the... If Celtic are going to get booted out of the Champions League because of the argument that Brendan's advancing, then they land in the Europa League. Right now, they're going to land in neither, are they? Because they're being so poor. So with that in mind, you look at Feyenoord and say, Feyenoord have taken 4 points. Where are Celtic in this argument? Feyenoord had the same turnover. We make the same argument about the Eredivisie as a league that's not particularly that compelling.
Yeah.
And if you've got the same financial revenues in terms of about 80 million quid, where's the argument? We can say that the argument might be that the Scottish League isn't as strong as the Eredivisie. Well, that's subjective. But it's this Celtic outcomes, and even with Ange last year, he got away with it a little bit last year because he got a credible draw against Real Madrid. But the rest of the time, they were poor in that Champions League group.
What a good Celtic fans thing. Off the back of what Simon's saying there, Ewan's a big Celtic fan. Ewan, good morning. What's your take on that? The headline is 6-0, but what does it tell us about Celtic in the Champions League, Ewan?
Well, it doesn't really... Morning, guys, first of all.
Morning.
It doesn't really tell the whole story. It's easy to beat us with the same old Celtic, always losing in Europe, but to me, Brendan's got like a free hit, and I know that means that might sound silly, but he's got a free hit in Europe purely because last year, Ange was the first one it's the first time in the group stages last season under Ange for a period away. He had a plan. He's now moved on to what he perceives as bigger and better things. Brendan's come in. There was a massive hangover when Ange left. Brendan trying to stamp his new philosophy and come into his way of playing. And there was a massive hangover going into match day 1. We were also ravaged by injuries, but nobody's mentioned that. There's been no analysis. It's easy for everybody to put the boot into us, but nobody analyses it the way they do with other teams. I know Newcastle were the big story, the first ones, and I get that, and we're a bit of a gap filler. But you need to do us justice. Brendan will go on. I think if you look at the performances, in pockets, not completely, but in pockets, there's something there for us to build on. There is potential for us to be able to compete at this level. And I know, I'm not saying we're going to win it, but competing, getting out of the group or getting into the latter stages of the UEFA, say by dropping down from...
But you're a long way from where you should be in the Champions League.
Can I help? Let me just give you some context, because in the Champions League, and I've played there a few times, the home games are key. And Celtic got done to a 95th goal against Lazio. They had more possession, more stats were better all over. Should have won the game on chances, right? So they didn't do it again. A bit like Ange last year, the home game didn't get over the line at home. Atletico 2-2 could have won it. The home games are key in Champions League, and Celtic aren't just... It's a little bit of luck sometimes to get over the line at home against good sides. and they aren't quite doing it. The away games, you've got to look a bit differently than the home game. And I agree with Simon, getting done 6 when you go down to 10, irrelevant of whether you've got to dig in and do a bit better.
Yeah.
But they are closer than you think.
Right, then we'll see them against Feyenoord, won't we?
Yes.
And we'll judge them against Feyenoord.
They should be beating them.
You and Simon's right. Feyenoord would be the test, right?
Completely agree. Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, like against like.
It might be a dead rubber by that point, though. It might be a moot point, so it might not be as good a gauge as we could.
But it might get you into third spot, which gets you into the Europa League, doesn't it?
I agree, yeah, but I think even then, I think it's looking like a long haul. I'm honestly, I'm quite happy to give Brendan a pass this year, and then we'll see next year, just because of the way the chips have fallen this year with the injuries getting into the match day one and the sort of hangover there was with the philosophy for the previous manager. So,
fair enough, Ewan.
I think he's been very generous there. I think he's been very generous. I do. I think that's a very generous attitude and outlook, because I don't think Brendan's entitled to a pass. I don't think you get taken into Celtic with a pass in mind. You're in a group that ultimately you look at and say, well, it's going to be difficult to get past Lazio. It may be difficult to get past Atletico Madrid, but I'm in the conversation with Feyenoord. If you don't come out of this conversation with Feyenoord with a proper answer, then I don't think you should be given a pass.
To be honest, he's right, though. Looking at the table, even if they beat them, they won't. I don't think they're going to get third, because it means they'd have to win in Lazio as well.
Yeah, I suppose. Well,
and when you say something, I don't think he should be given a pass. What do you mean by that?
Well, he's saying that he should be. He's saying the argument that Ewan was making, that he should be given a pass.
Yeah.
And so on that backstory that he's advocating for, which is the change of culture from Ange to Brendan, injuries like every football club has. I'm pretty sure he won't know what the roster of players is at Feyenoord and how injured their players may not have been to get results that they've got.
Right.
I don't think Brendan is entitled to it. I really don't. It's not. I really like Brendan. I don't like the way he behaved towards the end at Leicester. I thought that was weak on his part. Yeah. And I don't like the politic, and I don't like the setting up of the season in such a way which is. He's already priced in failure. He's already made sure that people start to swallow that particular pill. So when it comes along, there's an opportunity to him to say, well, I did suggest that we're going through this.
Ultimately, one point after 4 games is not where they should be. And he will know that. He's not daft.
Yeah.
And they should have... You can have any excuse for one game, but each game, they're nearly there. And you can't be nearly there more than, you can have one game where you get a bit bad luck, but not 4. And they should be doing better. But there are mitigating circumstances for Celtic.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.